A very warm morning to one and all present here. This is Abhilasha from Leal Public School. And students, today we all are going to start our new chapter from your history textbook. The name of the chapter is Women, Caste and Reform. So the reform movements, the reform movements of the 19th century ushered in an age of educational development and social awareness in India. We saw so many reformation movements in 19th century. Either it is about education or either it is about social awareness. We saw so many reform movements, right? So first of all, what is the meaning of reform movement? Reform movement is a type of social movement that aims to bring social and political system closer, that is idle to the community. Okay, so that is reform movement. Okay, when we put some changes in the educational systems, or we wanted to aware society about different things, and we aim to put the social and political system closer, that is known as reform movement. Okay, so the we have seen like the progressive and the literate Indians like Raja Ram Mohan Rao, we talked about him also, began to attack on the social evils. Like one of the example which I wanted to give here is Sati movement. So they attack on these types of social evils, these types of superstitions or taboos or the orthodox feelings they were having. So many literate Indians, so many progressive Indians attack on these types of evils or these types of things. That refrain the people from adopting modern ways of lives. So somehow Britishers like started to bring westernization here. They wanted to modernize the people of India, but some of the citizens or some of the people were very reluctant to adopt this change, and which is like obviously some of the things done by the Britishers or the East India Company was like very nice, and it is like beneficial for the people of India. But they were like Indian people were like very reluctant to see this change, very reluctant to adopt the modern ways of life. So the Indian reformers, especially the Indian reformers, like wanted to like attack on these types of orthodox thinking which some of the people are having. Okay, so basically we will talk about women, we will talk about caste and how the situation of women and change after so many reformation. We will talk about this in this chapter. So have you ever thought of how children lived about 200 years ago? Nowadays, most girls from middle class families go to school and often study with boys. On growing up, many of them go to colleges and universities and take up jobs after that. They have to be adults before they are legally married. And according to law, they can marry anyone they like from any caste and community, and widows can remarry too. All women, like all men, can vote and stand for elections. Of course, these rights are not actually enjoyed by all. Poor people have little or no access to education, and in many families, women cannot choose their husbands. Yes, situations like these, we often see situations like these, like many poor people cannot afford to get the education, and even in many families women cannot choose their husbands. But about 200 years ago, all these things which we are like experiencing right now, as a girl, I am sitting here, I am teaching you. But if अगर आज से 200 साल पुरानी बात करूं, it is like a very 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 rare to have a to have a woman have a woman of like a woman who is a teacher, to have a woman who is a teacher. It was like very rare. Okay, but it is very common today. Very many girls go to school, even often they study with boys also. They go to colleges also, universities also, take certain types of jobs also. After completing their education, after completing their degree courses, they take up certain types of jobs also. They after they have to be adults before they are legally married. Legally मतलब शादी करने से पहले उनकी एक legal age होनी चाहिए. They have to be adults, and according to law they can marry anyone they like. They can choose their husbands also from any caste and any community. Okay, so 200 years ago things were very different. Most children were married off at an early age. Both Hindu and Muslim men could marry more than one wife. In some parts of the country, widows were praised if they choose death by burning themselves on the funeral pyre of their husbands. Women who died in this manner, whether willingly or otherwise, were called sati, meaning virtuous women. Women's rights to property were also restricted. Besides, most women had virtually no access to education. In many parts of the country, people believed that if a woman was educated, she would become a widow. So 200 years ago, women were like considered very subordinate to men. They were denied to certain rights which we are like enjoying, which we are enjoying today. They were denied these types of rights earlier. So even the birth of a girl child was not celebrated in the family. Even child marriages was very common. Both in Hindu and Muslim community, child marriage was were very common. Polygamy was common. What is now, here is a term called polygamy. I use the term polygamy. What is polygamy? When a man having more than one wife, when a man is having more than one wife, that for that we can use the term polygamy. ठीक है, जब एक आदमी एक से ज्यादा औरतों से शादी करता है तो इसके लिए जो टर्म यूज किया जाता है वो टर्म है पॉलीगमी. ओके, उस टाइम पे बहुत कॉमन था. पॉलीगमी वाज वेरी कॉमन इन द फैमिलीज, स्पेशली इन द रूलिंग प्रिंसेस, especially in the princess family, or you can say royal families. It was like very common. Even in some parts of the country, in some parts of India, widows were praised if they choose death by burning themselves. जो सती प्रथा बोला जाता है कि जब अगर वो अपने आप को अगर वो अपने आप को अपने हस्बैंड का जो अंतिम संस्कार होता है, जो फ्यूनरल पायर है, उसमें अगर अपने आप को बर्न करती है तो उसको बहुत ज्यादा मतलब कि प्रेस किया जाता था. उसको बहुत ज्यादा, उस वुमेन को वर्चुअस वुमेन कहा जाता था. ठीक है, वर्चुअस वुमेन. Virtuous means that woman is having very high moral standards. She is very moral. ठीक है, उसको बहुत ज्यादा virtuous माना जाता था, and they use the term sati for this virtuous woman. Okay, women's life, women's life was like very pathetic at that time. The lives of widow was more pathetic than the common woman's life. The property were women's right to property were also restricted. मतलब उनके पास property भी नहीं हो सकती थी. They led the most miserable life at that time. Okay, even in some parts, some people believe that if woman was educated, she would become a widow. वो क्या है, वो widow बन जाएगी, वो विधवा बन जाएगी अगर women को education मिल गई, अगर women ने एक education मिल गई. तो virtually there was no access to education for women. Women were denied the right to education, and they were denied to have the property rights. They led a life of ignorance and fear. Okay, now just look at this figure, Sati, painted by Balthazar Sloane, 1830. This was one of the many pictures of Sati painted by European artists who came to India. The practice of Sati was seen as evidence of the barbarism of the East. Now, barbarism, we talked about barbarism in our previous chapter. Barbarism means Eastern, Europeans think that Hindus, especially Hindus, are not having, Hindus are like very cruel, very brutal. They have no culture, they have no civilization. So this practice of sati, practice of sati was seen as evidence of barbarism of the East. की ये बार्बरिज्म बहुत क्रूएल है, ये सती प्रथा अपनाते हैं, बहुत ही क्रूएल है ये लोग, ये बहुत ही ब्रूटल है, वुमेन को कोई इंपॉर्टेंस नहीं दी जाती है, वुमेन जो है एक इग्नोरेंट सी लाइफ जो है यहाँ पे जी रही है. ओके, So differences between men and women were not the only ones in society. In most regions, people were divided along lines of caste. Brahmins and Kshatriyas considered themselves as upper castes. Others, such as traders and moneylenders, often referred to as Vaishyas, were placed after them. Then came peasants and artisans such as weavers and potters, referred to as Shudras. At the lowest rung were those who labored to keep cities and villages clean or worked at jobs that upper caste considered polluting. That is, it could lead to the loss of caste status. The upper caste also treated many of these groups at the bottom as untouchable. They were not allowed to enter temples, draw water from the wells used by the upper caste, or bathe in the ponds where upper caste bathed. They were seen as inferior human beings. So many differences. There is a huge difference between men and women in the society. In many regions also they hierarchically divided into Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. Brahmins and Kshatriyas were considered as upper caste, and Vaishyas considered as like Vaishyas. Even Vaishyas also they like sub upper caste, they considered as sub upper caste, and Shudras like peasants, artisans, and those who do the odd jobs like the job of Harijan, or so that type of jobs were considered as those groups, Shudras, were considered as lower caste people. They consider them as polluting people, polluting caste, and even some communities, some groups some groups treated them as untouchables, कि हम उनको अगर हमने उन्हें टच कर दिया, लाइक हमारा जो जीवन है वो व्यर्थ है, लाइक हम अशुद्ध हो जाएंगे. ठीक है, इवन वो they were not allowed to enter in the temples, they were not allowed to draw water from the same wells from where upper caste used to draw water. ओके, इवन जिस पॉन्ड में नहाया करते थे, वो बात किया करते थे, वहां पे भी उनका जो वो पानी यूज करना और वहां पे जाना भी उनका क्या होता था, रिस्ट्रिक्टेड होता था. सो शूद्रास को स्पेशली क्या कंसिडर किया जाता था, इंफीरियर कंसिडर किया जाता था. Okay. So over the 19th and 20th centuries, many of these norms and perceptions slowly changed. Let us see how this happened. So from 19th century onwards, many of these norms, many of these rituals and cultures, not rituals, many of these types of cultures and the viewpoints and the perceptions and the thinkings slowly changed. Okay, so we will talk about this now, working towards change.